In this episode of The Bitey End of the Dog, I'm joined by one of the most influential figures in modern dog training, Dr. Ian Dunbar. Ian has been shaping the dog training profession for more than 5 decades, and in this conversation, we explore the history of the industry, how training philosophies have evolved, and the moments that helped shape the field as we know it today. Together, we discuss Ian's early experiences growing up with dogs, the origins of off-leash puppy classes, the founding of the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, now known as the Association of Professional Dog Trainers International, and how shifts in ideology and social pressure have influenced the profession over the years. We also talk about the critical role of early puppy socialization, the importance of play and enrichment, and why Ian believes prevention, especially through puppy training, remains the most powerful tool we have for reducing fear, aggression, and behavior problems later in life. Dr. Ian Dunbar is a veterinarian, animal behaviorist, and founder of Serious Dog Training and Dunbar Academy. He pioneered off-leash puppy socialization classes and helped establish the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, which played a major role in professionalizing the dog training industry worldwide. His books, lectures, and educational programs have influenced generations of trainers and helped shift the field toward reward-based training and early socialization. And before we jump into today's episode, a quick heads up. If you're looking to learn more about helping dogs with aggression issues, head on over to aggressivedog.com. For pet professionals, there's the Aggression in Dogs Master Course, which is the most comprehensive program available on aggression, packed with expert insights and continuing education credits. For dog guardians, check out Real Life Solutions, which is a practical course covering everyday challenges like leash reactivity and dog-to-dog aggression. You can also join the Ultimate Access membership for just $29 per month, which gives you access to expert webinars, live mentor sessions, and exclusive discounts. And don't forget to check out the Canis Conference happening this October in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is going to be the world's largest conference dedicated to dog behavior, training, science, veterinary care, dog sports, scent work, and shelter and rescue. Now let's jump into the conversation with Ian. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Bitey End of the Dog. This week I have a very, very special guest. Dr. Ian Dunbar is here to join us, someone that's been influential in my career as well as the career of thousands and thousands of other trainers across the world. And I'm so excited to be talking to Ian, so welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Thank you for calling me special.
Special indeed. I think you've been training for longer than I've been alive, I think. So tell just for anybody, we have some new listeners and people that are new to the field. So I think some people actually may not know just how impactful and all the things you've done in your career. But take us back. I want this to be a show about the history of our industry a little bit, because we could talk about training all day, but you and I have done that in many other places. So we don't get the opportunity, you and I, to talk much, though. And I think one of the things we should talk about is the history of training in the industry and how things have evolved. And of course, your influence in all of this. So take us back to the start of your career. You know, I don't think you often talk about actually what got you into dogs.
No, I don't. You know. I mean, I was very lucky. I had a charmed, we'll go back to the 50s. I grew up on a farm, and my mum worked because my dad decided he didn't want to, so I was left at home, and I would spend my day in the fields with 3 dogs. And they were off leash, and I'd call them and signal them to sit, and that was it. I was gone for 8 hours. Then I had to check in at the farmhouse at 5 p.m., so I had a watch. And all the techniques that I'd learned from my dad and my grandfather, I later found when I was in the American Kennel Club in the late 80s, I think. All these techniques existed back then: lure reward training, puppy training, off-leash puppy lure reward training, shaping, weight and reward training. They were all done back then, and I found them in these beautiful old books published in the 1700s, 1800s. So we then move into the 60s. I was at the Royal Veterinary College in London because London was the place to be. On my application form, you had to apply for 6 universities. I applied for London, and London, you know. Anyway, my first, I think, look at what was called dog training was that lady. What was her name now? Sit! Good doggy. I can't remember her name, but we used to watch it in London in the pubs. And I honestly thought it was a comedy show. I didn't realize that this is how people actually train dogs on leash in a line, like, giving them leash corrections nonstop. So then I came to the States, 71. And in my first year, quite by chance, because the first place I visited was a vet clinic where friends of mine from the vet college were working, a lady from the University Extension went to the clinic and said, do you know anyone who can teach a 10-week course on dog behavior? And they said, oh, well, actually, Dr. Ian Dunbar, he's researching dog behavior, in Dr. Beach's study. So I got this gig, and I loved it, because when you teach at the university, the number one question is that on the midterm, and you just want to smack them. They aren't engaging and like finding the magic in this, but dog owners did. It changed my whole approach to training. They needed this stuff. They found it fascinating. And I was 8 weeks through, and they said, are you going to do anything on training? And I said, well, no. It was billed as behavior and temperament, but if you want, they said, oh, please do. So I went back and gave it a thought. And there weren't, back then, any books on lure reward training. There wasn't even the name. So I thought, well, this is what my dad did and my grandpa, and I put it together. And the audience sort of divided into two. The veterinarians and owners loved what I was saying, and the breeders and trainers said, no, this is rubbish. This won't work. You can't train puppies off leash. And so the last week I said, well, bring in your own dogs, puppies. I'll round up some from campus. And we did this little workshop, and it was so much fun. And so we then come to a seminal moment in my life in the 80s when my wife, Mimi, she had a great job. So I was rewiring, replumbing the house. And she said, Ian, tell me how you're going to bring money into this relationship. And I thought, oh, God. So I went, I remember I sat on a rock in Bodega Bay smoking a cigar. And I thought, well, it's got to be to do with animals and dogs and cows are my favorite. So I tossed a coin, came down dogs. Second time I'd done that. And I thought it's got to be with puppies or development because that's what I've just studied for 10 years. Then I thought, I know, I'm going to teach off-leash puppy classes. And we set them up. And a little known fact is the first class was taught at Marin Humane Society. Mm-hmm. That serious puppy training was the second class. But I taught the one at Marin Humane Society. And it took off. Vets loved it. Because back in the 70s, 80s, we had a lot of aggression, dogs biting people, a lot of it. And I had a special clinic dealing with bite cases, like you do now. And a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, not as much as now, but it was the aggression was the thing. Why? Because dogs were out there more, so they were more socialized to other dogs, didn't get the reactivity, they weren't scared of the environment, but they were coming in contact with people and biting them. And so vets loved it because now they had dogs they could handle. And you see, even a wriggly dog doubles the time for your veterinary procedures, let alone a fearful one when you have to go very slowly, like all this fear-free handling stuff now. And so instead, we just prevented anxiety, fear, aggression in these silly little off-leash puppy classes. And being a developmental psychologist, week one, I could see incipient signs of fear, anxiety, reactivity, and aggression. We saw them, we nipped them in the bud, like the little videos I've been putting up on Facebook lately, and it upset so many people. Like, that's flooding. I said, of course it's flooding. They're puppies. You must flood them. You can't do damage to a puppy by flooding it. It just falls asleep, And they say that's flooding and that's the end of the discussion, rather than saying, no, you don't flood an adult fearful dog abruptly. You do it gently. So then
this was in the 80s that they were saying this.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so puppy classes took off, and I started 86 lecturing around the country because I did extension stuff, but they took all the money. And I thought, I'm getting 100 people at my lectures, and they're each paying, $60 to $100. I'm only getting 300 to 500 a day. So I started the Center for Applied Animal Behavior, and the first year, 86, I arranged 24 lectures in different cities in the US and Canada. And a lot of people came up, say, we don't believe you do this, Ian. And then it was Joel Walton who said, Ian, why don't you teach a puppy training workshop? So we did the first one in Maryland in 89, and it was a stunner. And the word just spread in the obedience community. And so now the workshops, I called them games and reliability workshops. They were all off-leash. And I was meeting people in every city saying, we're teaching your off-leash puppy classes now, Ian. So it was 93. I thought, it'd be cool to get these people together, because it was like 1 or 2 in New York, 3 in Seattle, and things like that. So I arranged this conference called, this is a little known fact, an APT conference. That was the acronym. And I never, ever, until quite recently, told people what it meant. And it stood for Association of Puppy Trainers. And I'm very proud of that name, more so recently, because it's totally missing in training now. Anyway, 93, I did the first conference, San Mateo. 70 people came, 1 from Australia, a couple from England. And then in 94, we did it was the 6th APT conference, because each year, 93, 94, I did 2 in Canada first, 2 in England, or rather, I tried to. They just went arse upwards straight away. I mean, the arguments, and they boycotted me, and they told all my lecturers I'd got from England that they couldn't lecture. If they lectured, they were thrown out at one of the 7 associations in England then.
What was the pushback for that?
There were so many dog training associations, and they quibbled amongst each other, but they were exclusionary from the outset. And so in 93, I had to bring over lecturers from the US. I think I did a lecture, Kelly did a lecture, a guy called George did a lecture. We had no UK lecturers. They were told they couldn't do it. So I just said, this is going to be a chat in the bar. We've changed it from this room to the bar, and we chatted. So in 94, I said, same thing. I'm going to have a big room. You come along. It's free. We chat about this. And right after that, I was talking for the APBC group. It was a group of 4 dog trainers, but they had sponsored conferences. So they had 500 people coming to the conference. Wow. And I just told them what I was doing in Canada, the US, and there's an association especially for dog trainers, not sort of behavior counselors or behavior consultants or veterinarians, a dog trainer who's doing it, i.e. changing the dog's behavior and quantifying how quickly. Because back then, most trainers competed in obedience. And they all said, we want it in the UK. And 2 guys on the, what do you call it, as in a group talk on the panel with me, stood up and said, no. And I said, I will give you my list of 550 people who want to be members. You run it. So, 700 members, that was it. The first thing they did was threw out 630, which left 70, of which 7 of which refused to join an association that threw out the majority of members from the start. So that's England. It's always been sort of exclusionary, But the APDT happened at the end of the 6th APT conference in Orlando, 307 people. And we then got people, I said, I don't want to run this. I said, I don't want it to be Ian's thing. We need a board. And we got people, and they said, well, could we change the name to the Association of Pet Dog Trainers? I said, yeah, I love it. So in my closing lecture, I said, this association is now the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, and its first conference will be in Chicago. So Sirius, my puppy training company, funded the APDT for the first 7 conferences.
Wow.
And I paid each year for 10 people to fly in from the UK. and put them up. But the hotels then were $25 a night at this hotel in Orlando, and the expensive ones were $85. And it was truly international. We had a lot of people from Australia, then the Japanese started coming. And so when the APDT says, oh, it's the 25th anniversary, I sort of said, well, actually, it's your 24th, but whatever. And so the APDT, it was the glory years were 94. That was a magical conference. And we had skits from the outset. The Canadians did a skit to Mush Your Malamutes, and they all dressed up. They were the twinkling stars in the sky, you know. And it became tradition then that we always had skits, and some were impromptu, until eventually it was a whole evening. You can probably remember it now with the stupid, I mean, it was just silly, but it was togetherness. But the key of the APDTs, which I subsequently helped set up in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Chile, you know, I set up the best starter conference ever in Chile. I mean, we brought three of us, and I got Spanish speakers too, you know, Gina in Mexico, and that was a fun conference, man.
Yeah.
But the key is it was open to everyone. This was an educational conference. It's not a certification organization. And that's why we started the CPDT, because in professions, you go to, say, medical school or veterinary school, but then you have to take your boards. You can't have your teachers certifying you for two reasons. Either they certify people they shouldn't because they like them, or they don't certify people they should because they're good dog trainers, but they don't like them. So, but then it started to change that I'm not going to do this because we're being recorded, but if I listed the names of, say, 20 people who were leash jerk trainers, dog hanging trainers, you know, traditional dog training, that's all there was until 82. It was AKC classes, either kennel club classes or obedience training clubs, and a few breeds had their own training clubs, like German Shepherds, because they're always different, German Shepherd people. So you had these German Shepherd dog training clubs, Labrador training clubs, you know, and what have you. And so it was meant to be open for everyone. And the CPDT was for certification, and it was meant to be certifying a video, a half-hour video, but they never got really to doing that. It was certifying on theory, which doesn't really help you train a dog. You know, if you're backed in a corner by a growly Akita, you know, knowing a quadrant won't help you at all. You know, you've got to immediately throw a few treats away from you, you know, and then get a door between the two of you. But I saw it start on the board that there became, these people I converted became religious converts. And we had a name for them within the APDT, was PPP. And I can't remember the first P, but it was purely positive. And they became intolerant of anyone who used a leash of any kind, let alone a shock collar. And it split the whole profession into two. To now, it's written everywhere. I mean, they do things, if you read it, they ban punishment, positive punishment, and they ban negative reinforcement. You can't do that. How are you going to deal with a dog that's barking or won't come when called? You know, what it shouldn't be is aversive. Instead of opening their eyes, and I totally blame Skinner for this. What he did to learning theory was criminal. He, you know, so Thorndike starts off learning theory, fantastic, you know, cats in escape rooms and all this stuff. And he realized that reinforcement came from the environment. But Skinner wants to put the animal in a box. So how can he get this little computer, or first these mechanical things, to say good dog or bad doggy, or good rat rather, bad ratty? So he brought shock onto the scene. He put shock on the same stage as food rewards. This was the end of learning theory, because you're dealing with a human knee-jerk reaction to punish. Ignore the good, punish the bad. That's the way we are in all our social relationships, in our own life. You know, we get fed up. Oh, my God, I've been diagnosed with this. Yeah, well, for 70 years, you hadn't. What do you do with those 70 years? And it's not like you're going to die right away. You got another good 10, 20 years in you, you know? And people just went punishment crazy. And then people went punishment intolerant because they'd lost the creativity. And that stemmed from the laboratory. And because I asked a simple question, I actually, in 2015, called up all the famous learning theory people in dogs in the world, you know, like my heroes, and said, how can we punish a dog without causing fear or pain? And all but two said, Ian, it's impossible. Don't be silly. All of the dog trainers said it's impossible. Horse trainers said, the only two people who said you could do it, one was my Mimi, cognitive psychologist. You know, she grew up with my Malamute, but that's all she knew about dogs. And the other was a child psychologist. She was a primatologist, and she's the wife of my co-inventor of the, auto shaper. And she said, it's what every teacher does in kindergarten classes. You can't shock a kid or slap them, you know, because they used to in Victorian times. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of, you know, as my last book I wrote about completely not minimally aversive. That's a cop-out. And what that says to me is you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to teach a dog to shush. You don't know how to stop a dog being reactive using non-aversive means. So I renamed it Tina, totally invasive, in the sense of being engaging and empathic, getting inside the dog's head, seeing it from the dog's point of view, but non-aversive.
I want to back up just a moment to when you saw this big split. When was that? What year, or around what year did you start to see this really?
I saw it at the end up. So it was all great up to 99, the biggest conference ever. That was San Diego, 1,500 dog trainers.
Wow.
And we joined up with the Marines. That was my idea, because we were 80% women and the Marines are like 95% men. Yeah. So I talked to the guy in charge, said, do you want to come to our dance? It was a riot till one Marine started stripping on cage in uniform. Anyway, so in the early 2000s, and I tried to stay away from the board. I said, I'm there if you want any advice, because... Mm-hmm. And there were a number of us. I said, the board has to have a board advisory committee because you keep coming up with doing things, but we did them and they didn't work. We know that stuff. People like Sue Pearson or Alan Bauman, you know, they were the pulse of the APDT. And because it was under attack so many times, you know, different story. Mm-hmm. But in the early aughts, I was actually asked to come back to the board. And I did. I couldn't believe it. It was split down the middle. 3 really sage people, and then 4 total zealots, and all of them were converts. I converted them for jerking and hanging dogs, and now they were totally intolerant of people doing exactly what they did until they stayed up till 3 a.m. with a bar with me, and I said, you're not going to bed till I've convinced you. I said, if you like, I can use a human analogy, stand up. And I said, sit down, like that. And they go, oh. I said, yeah, it's unpleasant, right? How about this? Sit. I pulled out a 50. You know, the power of off-leash, you know, reward training instead of jerking or smacking or show cans and that stuff. But the converted people became really intolerant. And for me, it was sad. I think they ruined, I haven't gone back. I tell them every year, I'll come and do anything you want at the conference, but they haven't asked since Memphis, and they asked me to come to Memphis and then didn't ask me to do anything. So I was just standing around like an idiot. And so now it's intolerant, and it's written there, the things you mustn't do. And, you know, I've never used a shock collar in my life, never would. But do I go to shock collar conferences to speak to them? Yeah, because I understand how to make it more efficient. What does that mean? That they only have to shock once or twice instead of keep doing it 50 or 60 times. Because, you see, everyone says, oh, that's aversive punishment. It's not by definition. I mean, look to your definitions. About 40% of the definitions of punishment in the behavioral sciences don't mention the word aversive. They say a punishment is a stimulus that causes the immediately preceding behavior to decrease in frequency and be more likely to occur in the future. So something pleasant can be a punishment. Like, for example, your dog's going apeshit or jumping up or running away. You say, Rover, sit. One simple word is now acting like a punishment, where something like a nasty, something ugly can reinforce behaviors. Like your dog's running off and you say, come here, you son of a bitch. And the dog increases the running off speed. So we just took this learning theory like it was a Bible or a little red book or something. And they never questioned anything. It's crazy now. And now it's in lieu of training.
How do you, as Ian, define aversive? Because that's a word that gets used a lot, and it's equated with everything from just a benign irritation all the way up to abuse in the eyes of some when they use the word aversive. So how do you?
Well, when it came out with scat mats and then shock collars, they said, Ian, is this aversive? And I say yes, and they say why? I said because Ian doesn't like it. Okay. Now, as you say, it could be benign. I get frustrated with people and I have to take a deep breath when they aren't getting it quickly. I'm blessed with a creative brain that sees 100 answers to this problem. But sometimes teaching people, I get a little frustrated. In a puppy class, I never get frustrated with people. They keep saying, how do you keep so calm, Ian? I mean, these people haven't got a clue. I said, because it's the puppy's life. I can change this puppy's life now if I can get the people to do it. I was doing it last night. I'm back teaching puppy classes again. I love it, man. There was two hopeless people. One came in, a puppy 2, with an out-of-control 8-month-old thingy, Malinois. Oh, my God. And I got it sitting and lying down. Then I got her to do it, the mum. But then I showed her son. He got it right away. 20-year-old guy, really calm. He got this doctor, come, sit, off-leash, mind you. The other, right in the middle of it. And so my first definition was, I don't like it. Now we have to make a big leap here. How do animals feel pain? And there's a lot of stuff about that. The best book for people to read if they want research is Michael Fox, Integrated Development of Brain and Behavior in the Dog. When people say, is there a study on that? I said, yeah, Michael Fox did it in the 60s. But he did question, the conductivity in dogs was thought to be greater than in England's higher sort. I can't remember it now. So we don't know what animals feel any more than we know what our spouse is thinking or feeling. Mm-hmm. But I make the assumption, if I don't like it, then I'm going to assume no other animal would like it either, irrelevant of their neurology, even if they just have one neuron running from, the cell body all the way down to the end of its body, like the large neuron in the great African land snail, Archacatina. And so that's my definition. The more behavioristic definitions, anything that a dog moves away from, avoids, or anything a dog doesn't approach, like every child and every man when it's a puppy. Here we have all this aversiveness in dog training, and trainers won't do anything about it. Shyness, anxiety, you've got to solve it that day. I mean, that dog's hurting. We wrote a little thing about a reactive dog. It was a dialogue, and we got APT, is it? Chat, I don't know. But my son and I, and it was lovely. And then when the dog sensed the dog, he goes out. It's on Facebook. It's a lovely little story. And then he says, it's the dog. Oh, my brain is fireworks. My brain's fireworks. And that's the panic this dog is going through. Every single day it has to meet its biggest nightmare. But the owners, the trainers won't resolve it quickly. And why? You cannot if you're using a single quantum food treat. Forget the single quantum click. Mm-hmm. Behavior there's never something, they talk about the behavior. What behavior? This single behavior, like you're looking for this mythical beast, Loch Ness Monster. You've seen a behavior. What I see is ongoing behavior that changes 3 times a second. So the whole learning theory never addressed long duration behaviors like watches, stays, and shushes. And that's when you realize if you're using a clicker, you're lost.
Yeah, and it doesn't. It misses a lot of the big picture discussions we need to have, ethics and welfare, and not just looking at these singular moments. Yes, they're important, but they're not looking. Often the arguments you see and the division you see is driven out of these quadrants, or good or bad, and it misses a lot of the big picture. And so this happened. So you start to see this kind of great divide already happen. I mean, we've had divides in the dog training industry forever, but you saw a significant shift. How much do you think it's the social pressure or our cultural pressures to say, I'm virtuous here because I only believe in, positive reinforcement only, and all the other stuff needs to go. And then the other side's like, no, well, we have this and we're going to use these tools. And then you have these camps form. And then if you're not part of that camp, then you get looked at as suspicion, or you have to wear that team shirt and yell at the other side. And so you had also mentioned bringing in these experts on learning theory. Some of them were probably hesitant to do so. I wonder how much like the quote unquote political pressure of the industry push on it.
It's a very lovely thought, Mike. I wish it were that way, that we have people that think they're virtuous and then therefore act virtuously. I think it's the other way around. I think the biggest foible that destroys human lives and human interactions, we take the good for granted and we bitch and moan at the bad. I think what we have, and if you look at the comments, and when I post on Facebook, the comments, they are so rude. They are, because I met a veterinarian a long time ago who believed in, it was a book written by an Indian. Who was the Indian who ran the marathon with no shoes? U.S.
Oh, yes. Names
It
at the tip of my tongue. But I know who you're talking about.
Called Walkini. And it was about universal acceptance of everyone, that if you're having a disagreement, just take a breath and listen. Where are they coming from? And if someone's rude to you, in a store, who knows what's happened that day? A husband could have died. She could have terrible ongoing back pain, but what do they have to offer you? And I've always approached people that way, that a lot of people know me like this. So if this weren't a podcast, if this were my seminar, my longest seminar, by the way, was 6 days in a row. Wow. I just talk.
That's a lot of talking. They don't
realize I can listen. I'm a brilliant listener, especially in bars. I've got a beer. I can listen and come out with a nice, calm one-liner, like Dr. Phil. And how's that working for you? What are you trying to teach the dog here? Why don't you teach him to sit? Or to shush, or to come when called, and they're like, well, because he can't, he's off leash, he's not there. Well, you start in the kitchen, obviously, So I've now got to teach this person who's at a child level, and I'm talking many dog trainers as well. So I think the biggest human foible is to moan and bitch at the bad and make negative comments about what other people are doing. They can't stop it online, especially when it's impersonal. See, if they were in my seminar, I'd call them out right away and say, oh, come up here and show me how you do it. Here's the dog. Because I always like to train Rotties, Malamutes, Akitas, Malinois. I like big dogs, okay? I'll occasionally do Border Collies because they're quick and fast. And then we have my favorite breeds like Bernese and Springers, But I like a lot of the breeds that people think, well, he's a Malamute. I say, yeah, so easy to train. Rottweiler, so easy to socialize. All the pits, easiest dog in the world to socialize. Yet they're the one who gets the rat. But I think it's because people just make it's not a one sentence, it's a one phrase comment with no punctuation and then leave, like saying, but poppycock, stupid. Oh, another one was, I'll give you one, I read it yesterday. Well, watching this video, I thought Ian Dunbar would know better, but it sure makes my imposter syndrome make me feel a lot better now. I mean, that was quite a complicated one. Usually it's rubbish or a lot of swear words in it about adjectives with me as the noun. And so, but regardless, it cleaved the profession. So what are we going to do? Well, here's what Ian's going to do, because now dog training is back to where it was in 1982, January. Puppy classes didn't exist. So I've contacted all the puppy trainers I can find in the world. We're going to form the APT again. I'm going to train them all up for free. I'm going to give them all of the serious schedules and syllabus and what have you, because there's no competition. Because if you survey, I did a big survey of demographics of dog trainers, and I picked, it was about 100 trainers from the US, 100 from Australia, and 100 from the UK, from trainer databases. 15% only teach classes. Of those classes, less than 3 to 5% are off-leash, and less than 3 to 5% are off-leash puppy classes.
Wow.
So what are 85% of trainers doing? Well, largely behavior consults. So they don't train anymore. It's behavior consultations, mainly by Zoom, about anxiety, stress, reactivity, aggression, the 4 big temperament problems that ruin an adult dog's life, all of which were prevented in puppyhood. Mm-hmm. So the puppy trainers now have no competition. I'm going to get them up and running properly. And it's why I've got back again, to see the problem. And the problem is, even in my puppy classes, in my company, they're not learning what they should. So I go and sub for people. I think, my God, they've still got food in their hand. They've still got a bait bag. Mm-hmm. Don't they realize the rewards are all around them? The other dogs, playing games with people, tug, fetch, all off leash. That's the reward. You know, you integrate training interludes into anything the dog likes, anything the opposite of aversive, and you keep stopping it. And then you say, fetch, tug, go play. So like this, I would say this Malinois last night, I would say he hasn't played with anyone. And there was only a beagle off leash at the end. I said, do you want to have a play session? And like everyone there froze. I said, they're both cool. I've been watching his tiny little signs saying, I want to play, but I daren't. And oh man, we let them do it for 15 minutes. You couldn't separate them. And people are scared of letting dogs off leash.
Yeah. There's so many points I want to talk about. That you brought up so many.
But I'm enjoying this.
Yes, there's so many things. So let's take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll come right back.
Okie doke.
I've tried a lot of products that dogs can chew on over the years, and one of the things I'm always looking for is a chew that I feel comfortable giving my own dog. I'm also very selective about the products I recommend, and I only endorse products that I've personally tested myself or that I've given to my own dog, because I want my recommendations to reflect real experience and not marketing claims. Castagna, my own dog, absolutely loved the Rugged Dog Bully Sticks from the moment I handed her one. Just one kept her happily occupied to close to an hour, which is impressive for an enthusiastic chewer. What really stood out to me was the quality. They're 100% natural, fully digestible, rawhide-free, and ethically sourced from South America. One of the reasons I felt so comfortable giving these to Castagna is that she's not very experienced with bully sticks, and I wanted something I could trust, and Rugged Dog delivered. The thickness of these bully sticks gave me additional confidence, and I could simply relax while she enjoyed chewing. And with the additional bully stick holder, which is a genius product, by the way, it allowed for an additional layer of safety for a dog that likes to, sometimes swallow things whole. And beyond the bully sticks, I was impressed by Rugged Dog's entire lineup. They offer an outstanding variety of durable, thoughtfully selected chew products, making it easy to find options that suit different dogs, chewing styles, and experience levels. And of course, given the work I do helping dogs with aggression, I know how valuable appropriate enrichment can be. Providing dogs with safe, engaging outlets for natural chewing behavior is an important part of supporting their overall well-being, and Rugged Dog offers some of the best enrichment products I've come across. And if you're looking for long-lasting, high-quality chews that you can feel good about giving your own dog, I can honestly recommend Rugged Dog. They've become one of Castaña's favorites, and they've certainly earned my trust. And for listeners of the podcast, I have a special offer. Spend $65 and get a free Territory Treat Lock Bully Stick and Yak Chew holder. That's that cool device I used so that Castaña wouldn't swallow the bully stick. So be sure to add the treat holder to your cart when you go to the checkout and enter the code AggressiveDogFreeHolder as your coupon code to get that free treat holder.
All right, we're back here with Dr. Ian Dunbar, and we were talking about puppies just before we took that break, but it had me thinking, it's so true. I think while there are a lot of trainers teaching puppy classes, definitely I've seen a drop off, and it's what's interesting. It's created this industry for folks like me, right? So I'm coming in and kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, sweeping up the mess. But a lot of times the aggression issues because of lack of socialization and fear, and there's of course arguments for the other reasons why dogs are having behavior issues or developing behavior issues. Where we're getting dogs from and health issues, all those things. But it's interesting that that's also become, with our social media presence and people getting on social media, it seems like the barometer now for, quote unquote, great trainers is being able to deal with aggression or separation anxiety or major behavior issues, which we don't want. I want myself to be out of a job. I say that all the time. Like, I'd rather not have to do what I have. I'd much rather play with puppies, right? Isn't that going to be a lot easier of a job for me? And so I think somehow the narrative's gotten lost in saying, okay, we've, great trainers got to do all this kind of fancy, let's see you work with the highest level aggression case. Well, I'd rather not. We should be saying who's doing the best job of preventing these issues from happening in the first place. Who's having the puppy classes? Who are the best breeders? Who are we getting the dogs from? Let's look at how we're breeding dogs and the health issues and all these things that can impact it. So, yeah, I think that's why I love having this chat. It's because we're looking at the history of dog training and how we're from a broad perspective, right? So we kind of left off at around 2015, and this is a good segue into the last decade or so of what you've seen. So talk more about that. You were kind of talking about that with social media, and I kind of touched upon it and how we're getting sideways and what we're focusing on. But what are some of other insights you might have over the last decade and your observations?
The two big things that have happened, I think, that I decided to take a break from the company and left Kelly and Jamie running it. And I was down in San Diego a lot. And I was actually training assistance dogs for veterans. And then COVID hit. And we closed down 24 puppy training locations overnight. Wow. And Kelly moved really quickly. She got Zoom classes up to about 70% of in-person, capacity.
That's amazing.
So we were still we made nothing for the first 3 weeks. So she had Zoom classes, and they were fantastic because the people were from all over the world. You'd have someone from Australia, someone from England, someone from Japan, and someone from New York, as well as Californians in classes. They're really cool. And then Jamie had been building Dunbar Academy. We had Dog Star Daily, which is a totally free website, which I loved. But it was the operating system I picked, called Drupal, because you can make the home page different every time they look at it. So if they log on, it recognizes them. Now they're looking at 6 different videos on the home page. Mm-hmm. And I like that, but it's a bitch to make changes. So we started Dog Star Daily, and it was Jamie's idea. He said, why don't I follow you around? This is 2013, 14, and 15, and just video all your seminars. Mm-hmm. So we had this, and workshops. So did that. And Diane Robinson, who trained the killer whale, Willie, mm-hmm. When he was in Mexico, mm-hmm. is a Malamute owner. And I financed fencing a compound because one of them got loose and got ran over. I said, come and film my seminars. So these are on film, and workshops, I just want the workshops. And she did it for about 10 years. And it's on film. And she actually drove down and gave them all to me the other day. And I said, and you can sell them to finance buying pig fencing. So Jamie came and filmed all this stuff, and that's how we then we added in, I think just 4 of my books, or maybe 5 of them, and videos. I mean, 12, 20 videos, I don't know. So we started off with hundreds and hundreds of very practical, video. The theory's there as well. I'm talking about the stuff, and I'm glad, because I don't want it to go away. And in 20 years' time, they'll say, no, go back to Dr. Dunbar. Didn't he die? Yeah, he's been dead 20 years. But it'll all be there still. And that makes me feel good, because it was fun. It was fascinating. The 90s, I can't explain a dog training conference. It was everyone's event in the calendar for their year, and they would bring their family. And because we always did it in great places like San Diego, Orlando, and going back, and occasionally Chicago. Anyway, Jamie expanded Dunbar Academy by 300%. It was already a big company in 2 months.
Wow.
Right at the start of COVID. Mm-hmm. So we sailed through COVID and managed to keep all our employees on board. Mm-hmm. Opening up, I'm going to get to in a moment, couldn't do it. In that short time, 3 years, we had lost the word of mouth. We lost 8 locations that went out of business that we rented, and we lost 8 trainers who just wanted to move out of the state or stay at home. And I couldn't find dog trainers from anywhere. We asked online, and I'd interview them, and I'd talk about off-leash puppy classes, and they looked at me like, then I'd say, well, have you ever taught classes? No. I said, and a few had at the Humane Society, but now they're all on leash again. Yeah. It's terrible. Kelly had opened up a lot of Humane Societies in England with open paw. The dogs lived off leash. Remember, we designed a center like a pie, slices of a pie, and the feeding area was in the center. And they all bunched to the little bit slice of the pizza, say, to be fed, all off leash.
Why do you think that's changed so much?
I fear. I think there's no. You see, you will never learn what it needs to be a puppy trainer from a dog training association. I mean, let's look at the major associations. At one of them last year before last, there was one speaker on training, Amanda Ganton, talking about puppy training. They aren't talking about training. They aren't insisting that all the speakers bring a demo dog, have dogs on stage, or show videos of it. And like back when we were reconnected in COVID, remember these people in Australia asked, well, they aren't in Australia, each of the 5 staff members are in different countries in Southeast Asia. But we did this summit on dog training. I said, I will do it if I can find 12 people who would do a presentation where at least 30 minutes is video of them doing what they're going to talk about. I couldn't find them. So I had to double up, and really famous dog trainers I would have thought better of. And I understand a lot of people don't do it because they think we don't want to do a summit where everyone else gets my ideas for free. They don't understand that if you get 20 well-known dog trainers who come into this and giving them their own email addresses, you're getting millions. This is going out to millions and millions of people. And if you've got a $1 million following, you're going to double it after you've showcased your face, and be asked to lecture all over the place. It was like Dogstar Daily. We had a blog started, I think, 2007, and it runs continuously. It's still going. It's coming up to its 20th year. And it became so popular because we were getting advice from the technicals, people who are so famous now, like, I forget their name. I'm having terrible problem with names. The guy who started Amazon, the guy who started Facebook.
Oh, Jeff Bezos. Mark Zuckerberg, yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg said to me, he said, Ian, an overnight success takes 7 years in the making. Because they were at the same conference, you see, and we stood out because we were the dog trainers. giving presentations about changing behavior, you know. And so everyone wanted to know us because they all had their own dog questions, like Jeff Bezos, you know. And so, you know, whatever. So Dog Star Daily ranked in the top 220,000 largest websites worldwide. That's massive. Wow. Yeah, look at the list now and who's up there.
That's amazing.
And so we told people this and said, if you would like to join our blog, we ended up with 54 bloggers. Oh, yeah, loads of people. The names that you all go to listen at seminars. But then one by one, they dropped out. They didn't see that this exposure was good for them until it was down to like Kelly and I and a couple of others. But puppy trainers, it's not being taught now in conferences. Off-leash dog training is not being taught, period. Dog training classes aren't being taught, off-leash or on. And I think people are just scared of it. I now look for puppy trainers. I don't want any training experience at all. I don't want them to know what a quadrant is or a clicker. And so I go to places like Zoom Room, these massive, or Petopia. I want someone who has good handling skills with a large group of adult dogs off leash. So last night, I started a trainer. She watched the old trainer once for 3 hours. She watched me last week for 3 hours. And I said, "You ready to go?" She said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "What do I do? Syllabus?" I said, "Well, I've got a nice little syllabus for you. It's 9 topics. And I have arrows, and in red is what I want you to do a lot of. You choose it, do whatever you like. If ever you're worried about anything, you say, everyone grab your dogs and settle down and handle them. You know, handle all the subliminal bite stimuli. So we desensitize them all so we don't get nailed when they're adults and great big jaws, you know." And she had 2 of the most difficult classes. There were 9 puppies in the first class with 2 beginners. So we do rolling enrollment. So we have weeks 1 to 5. And so we have a huge size and age differential. And then a puppy 2 class with only 3 dogs in it. So you need special exercises when you have say more than 6 dogs. And when you've only got 1 or 2, it's more like multiple individual consults, you know. And she handled the first class really well. And I said, in the next class, I said, "Why don't I take the Malinois?" Even though that's her breed. But she taught the other couple of dogs in the puppy 2 class. And I said, good. I said, this wasn't a good tester class for you because of the 9 dogs and 3 dogs. So I'll come back next week. But why? She's so cool about the dogs off leash. But most people are scared. They don't like it. So they act defensively. So you scroll back through Facebook. So this is not my personal Facebook page. It's maxed out years ago. You know, they won't let you invite more than, was it 5,000 or something? Anyway, the Dunbar Academy Facebook page, and just go back the last year. And when I've posted anything from puppy class, dogs off leash, even when I'm training a dog, like a sort of a reactive dog, I was training him to sit at a distance. And this is Jambo, but all you want to do now is to hump. So I train him to not hump at a distance while I'm filming. You know, it's the only time I can multitask when filming and training a dog. And the comments are outrageous. It's like disgusting. It's too stressful for the dogs. There's far too many dogs off leash. It's chaos. So I just told the truth a little 2 days ago in a recent comment. I said, of course it's chaos. We're trying to expose the young puppies' brains to chaos, to as many stimuli as possible. And I said, so we flood them. Otherwise, all their brain cells are going to be gone before they're 3 to 6 months old. The apoptosis is enormous in youngsters. And I have written this down and made it simple for people who want to know the neurophysiology and neuroanatomy. It's in 2 places, I think. At Dunbar Academy, we have the free course collection. And I have a free course for each dog profession. So it's in the breeder's one. So breeder's, half is sex and half is behavior and development. And it's in the veterinary one. And it's what happens to brains. And I was lucky to be involved in this research. That I came to Berkeley for two reasons: to work with Frank Beach on his 30-year-long ongoing dog study from Yale, and to work with Marion Diamond in neuroanatomy. And I said, I don't want to take your courses because I've done them all 3 times before, but I'd like to be involved in your study. And she said, really? And she asked me a few questions. And so I asked her one back. And I said, okay, what's the nerva irrigentis? And she burst out laughing. It's an in-joke when you study neurology, but there we go. And she said, yeah, if you want to, I can't pay you. She proved her group, her and Mark Rosenzweig and someone Bennett, I can't remember his name, I didn't know him very well. They showed that enriched environments change brain anatomy, gross anatomy, within 3 weeks. Measurable thickness of the cortex. When you look at the microanatomy, it's all different. The cell bodies get bigger, number of dendrites and dendritic spines, the axons get longer, the number of synapses increases enormously. And they work with rats, so they just put toys in the cage. Then they said, this reverses in 3 weeks. Think of this analogy for humans as you get older. That's why the other day I thought, I'm going to write down the names of all the people whose names I keep forgetting. I'm going to read them through every day because I shouldn't be forgetting those people's names. They were good friends, but I don't know. It's just gone. I never forget the dog stuff, but people's names and movie names and actors, whatever. So then they did another experiment. What was the most potent enrichment stimulus, you think? They put in a cage with a rat, had the biggest effect on the brain of anything. Another rat. Wow, it's like, I'm sorry, I want to cry when I hear that. These poor rats in these cages, and you put in just a buddy, and all of a sudden they have proper brains, And so we now take that analogy to puppies. You have to flood puppies. Why? Because you can. The way they're set up is once they're flooded, they fall asleep. Then they wake up and they're ready to go again.
What do you think the pushback on that is just from that term alone? I mean, because flooding is like a 4-letter word in some circles of the dog training world. And
it's actually a 7.
I think the pushback might come from, they're worried about giving license to people that says, oh, well, Ian Dunbar says flooding is okay, so now I'm going to go do that as a particular type of trainer. Yeah. And that's the issue. I think people might say, oh, now people are going to extrapolate that and use that for anything. Do you think that's shaped so much by the ideology? That's
of course they take every sentence I say and then like the dog bite scale, they apply it to dogs fighting. No. And we have dogs in the UK, which is used in the court system now, that are being euthanized because of that. Because, the dog nicked the skin. It's only level 3, but it doesn't even apply. We have a totally different scale for that. And so, now how do we teach a puppy class? The trainer's on the alert all the time for incipient signs of aggression and fear in the family. Because the number one cause of dog bites is when a family member reaches quickly for their dog's collar. And so we notice that when the father reaches for the dog, he backs off. There you go. Dad's going to be bitten at 8 months when the dog's had enough of it. Dog runs from the little boy. Or when the little boy ran across class last night, the big old Malinois alerted and barks. There you go. This stuff is not rocket science, but you got to solve it immediately. Now, the thing that really upsets people, though, for me, it's people preventing dog bites, number one. Therefore, teaching them deep bite inhibition, too. So if they do bite because a kid kicks it, say, or pokes it with a stick, we know the bite will not puncture the skin. And if you came to me and you wanted advice from me, heaven knows why, but my advice to you is, Michael, I would teach puppy classes. Why? You can now ensure every dog plays and develops bite inhibition, and you go through the bite inhibition stuff with the people. They're still going to have problems with it when it grows up, but these are problems in a dog that has bite inhibition. So you can do what you like, But what people are actually scared of is when they think one dog is bullying another. So you had to be sensitive for that. As soon as you sense, and you see it anyway, a dog jumps on a dog once. If that happens twice, everyone's going to come down on that dog's owner. So you say, everyone grab your dogs, okay, and nestle them, on their backs with their heads up here, hold their little elbows so you can rub their tummy, one finger on the elbows, and then rub their little tummy like this. Then I say, okay, let me have, last night it was Morticia, and I hold Morticia. And what happens to the dog that's being bullied? He comes running back and says, I want to play. Come on, Morty, come on. Get out of it. I want to play. And we call it the bully test. You basically tether one animal. You hold one animal, the one that's being accused of horrible stuff. Occasionally I do it the other way around too. And so you can, when you do these preference tests or these tether tests, you can look inside a dog's head. Or another thing we do with shy dogs, which really brings them out quickly. I say, everyone grab your dogs by the collar, put your hand behind the legs from the front, hold the collar, pull his head through your legs, close your legs. So now we have a line of people and all the dogs' butts are out here. Then we let the shy dog sniff each butt. It's unbelievable how that gives so much confidence and increases now their desire to play. So, yeah, you don't let them off leash and do nothing, even with puppies. That said, if you did, and I know a number of people who do this, they will resolve it on their own. If they have bite inhibition, if they did grow up with free access to other dogs, they're not going to injure another dog. But what we've got is, in society, loads of adult dogs that were never socialized as puppies.
Right.
They wouldn't do it with those. I like to see if I can, when we teach, we still teach adult dog classes, although I want to stop. I try to get them off leash if I can. But if there's one dog that I'm not sure about, no, then the other dogs can't be off leash either. And then it's a very boring class because it's on leash training. So they are scared of dogs off leash. And I'm seeing it now, even in some of my trainers. And they're especially scared of big dogs again. So I'm now soliciting people out of these massive corporate daycare places. Why? Because I know the person's free in the evenings. I only teach puppy classes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings. Won't work on Monday, won't work on Friday, doesn't work on Sunday. Saturday is the day to go for. And so I can say, would you like to teach puppy class one evening a week? And I tell them what they're going to earn. And they're like, wow, you mean one evening? In one evening, I earn more than I'm earning in a week. Groom. But it's their dog handling skills I'm looking for, and not being scared of dogs off leash. Because every video I've put up of puppy thing is simple stuff, and I'm trying to demonstrate something like, did you see how in the second time I handled this dog, 15 minutes into class, I totally phase out food lures, and I'm now using verbal commands and hand signals? To me, that is magical. To this day, every time I do that, I think it's magic. This training works, man, and I don't believe it. It's like, I have imposter syndrome too, but I don't. I'm never going to give up with a dog. I'm going to work on it till it does. And now looking at dogs in the background. Well, that dog's stressed. And every dog that comes into class is friggin' stressed. Why? Because you didn't tell the owners what to do. So that's why this year I'm starting a new program, and hopefully your listeners will join in with me. As you're probably aware, we've been giving away free books since 2007. Okay, and these were free paper books, and we gave them away to every humane society and every veterinary clinic, the participating veterinary clinic in the greater Bay Area. So as far north as Napa, as far south as Carmel, and far east to Sacramento. And I used to deliver them. And then it got too much time. And so we shipped them. And then we found out that shipping was costing 3 times more than the cost of the books. because, my publishing company published them all. The book only costs $1, shipping costs $3.50. And so that was the time when we then went digital. And we were really at the front of the wave. So now I went to a group in China called DigiBooks. Unbelievable how far advanced they were, because libraries are a problem because the country is so big. So you sign on to DigiBooks and you have rows and rows of bookcases, and you touch one and it slides out of the bookcase and opens up. It was fantastic. And I went to the children's unit, and I would say 90% of the employees were under 10, testing the books and giving the comment, this is too complicated to get this little book out. Fascinating stuff. And so then it became easy to distribute these books online, telling vets, download them, put them on your own website for free download. Trainers, now I'm really going to publicize this to every vet clinic in the English-speaking world, because trainers don't get it. They're not interested in this silly prevention stuff, even though I train adult dogs the same way. And they love it, because they realize I'm not going to put them on leash. I'm not going to jerk them. I'm not going to shout at them, make friends with them. I'm going to give about 20 treats in the first, 5 minutes. And then now I'm getting 20 behaviors for one treat. So, it's lack of training. And a lot of it, you see, because people really want to, their hearts want to help shy dogs and fearful dogs, but they don't have the tools, because the main tools they're using is classical conditioning to change the dog's perceptions, to change the dog's behavior, which is the thing that's upsetting the owner. 10 times quicker is doing it the other way around. Change the dog's behavior, then that will change the dog's attitude and perceptions of other dogs and people, which makes the owners happy. And so we use a standard routine for both dog-dog reactive dogs and dog bites. You take 2 steps back, say, come, sit, which means come, turn your body around. So now your rectum is facing the thing you're scared of, and sit, stay, watch. And you keep the dog there, and we practice this every 25 yards on a walk, so they get to do it. So it stands a remote chance of starting. And I've seen it work in one session. My neighbor down the street, 70-year-old guy, God, I say that like it's really old, but I'm much older than that. But I was surprised he got it so fast because he's 70. But then I thought, no, his teacher's much older and teaching him. I explained what I was going to do to him as we were walking to try and get his dog lunging on his stupid flexi leash. Unless you got the problem on camera, no one believes the solution. And of course, because I was there, the dog was perfect. So anyway, the next day we go and film, and first dog that comes, Jamie's right in on this dog, this old guy, he backs up, the dog sits, stays, watches, in all for 40 seconds. He tried to turn his head once, like that. And the guy reacted, but he couldn't. He just went, and the dog was looking at him again. Then good dog. He knew that. So this man kept his dog staying and watching him while the other dog passed by behind him. That means he said the words good dog probably once every 2 seconds and gave probably 10 food treats. And you've only got to do that 5 or 6 times. And now the dog says, there's another dog coming, Dad. I'm sitting, I'm looking at you like this, And so when we reverse the order, it's much quicker. So I get the fact that their hearts go out to these dogs and they want to help them. And I want to show them, give them the tools to help them quicker. But everybody is scared of putting a video of them training online. So you answer me. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you were one of few who dared? Because of the people I eventually chose, a couple of them had very short videos, didn't they? Like 2 or 3 minutes. And that's what people want to see. And they want to see, like, the mistakes Michael makes and how you get over it quickly, because you're dealing with bitey dogs, you know? And whoops, I was pushing that dog too far too quickly.
The pressure, right? The pressure puts
Yeah.
from social media and the potential criticism shuts so many people down. And it's a shame because there's, I say it a lot, there's a lot of talented trainers out there that have lots of good material. They just don't put it out there because they're too afraid of the criticism from the community.
When social media started, I was at the first tech conference, social tech conference. And what was it called? It was about making money, tech econ, that was it, tech economics. And there was an English guy there. I wish I could remember his name. And because I can't find, this was so long ago, I can't find even the website listing the names of the people who spoke. And he said, it's going to be a disaster if we don't have video editors and we don't have book editors. It's going to be vindictive dross. And oh man, was he right. But I wasn't. I thought, this is the educational tool that everyone wants. It fails miserably every time I do it. So even with like our own, Dunbar Academy is essentially it's a subscription site. But I should give you a link so people can get on for free and download these books for free before I go. So even our subscribers, we call them the top dogs, I'll say, I'm willing to do a Q&A, and we have loads of subscribers, for, a couple of ads, 1 day a week, if you like. There's no discussion. I'm lucky if I get 50 people, sometimes 80. People don't want to talk about the stuff and learn. Instead, they're asking me the same old question about their dog's reactive, or he barks, or, he's not house trained. I say, well, read the books, watch our courses. This is brilliant to educate people. You'll get far more attentiveness from people in different countries, but they just don't. They want it short and quick.
Yeah,
so,
the attention span. That's what social media has created for sure. It's very short attention spans, So
what I'm making now is it's a new course, and it's like 2 sentences and a short video. And in all, I've got about 140 videos up already, and I've done a quarter of the chapters. So it'll probably be about 500 very short videos, and each one makes a point. And then I'll talk about all the other things they're going to mention afterwards, snide comments about. Yes, she does have a bag of slippery chicken in her hand. And that was lovely because that's her dog she can't control. I'm teaching the dog to do a 9-second sit stay and look at me beside him. And she's fiddling with the bag all the time. So quite a big distraction, right? That's high-level training when you use food as a distraction and an occasional reward. So I know all the comments they're going to make to moan, even though the video is to illustrate one single point. But it's a shame because I love chatting about this stuff. It's still, when I go through it with anyone, I always come out with a new idea. As I'm talking about it, that's when my brain's the most creative. And it's why I never use notes. And I don't know what the lecture's going to be about, but it's going to be funny probably if people allow me to be funny.
So we've kind of recapped the last decade now, and obviously the need for puppy classes and how important that is. But let's kind of like get back to this historical lens for the last few minutes here, and just I think a good question to ask you within the last more than 5 decades of experience. What's the most memorable moment in your career, or just something you've experienced? That's a big question, I know, but
oh God. Well, aside from personal things like teaching my son to ski, I mean, in the world of dogs, I would say collectively the 90s APT and APDT conferences, everyone was an absolute blast. And for me, a high point in training. Yeah, we were serious as bankrolling it, but great kudos goes to Kathleen Chin. She owned a puppy training company called Puppy Works, which is now bought out by someone else. They do seminars. And there were 3 puppy trainers. Once I've been going for 3 years, there were 3 people teaching puppy class in the Bay Area. So I said, hey guys, why don't we work together? I had worked out that we have less than 3% of the market share. Why don't we promote together? Well, she then didn't want to do puppy works and puppy classes, and she came in and helped me out in the 94 conference that I suddenly got cold feet and thought, oh my God, I personally have 60 grand on the line if this fails. So she helped me by getting the exhibitors, and we got 39. I wanted 50, so I made other booths, like the APDT members meeting booth. That was 2 of them, and Ian Dunbar's favorite books booth. And so we made it up to 50. That was just a glorious time in training. And it wasn't just what we were giving to dogs, it was the people. We were together then. We were a unit. We wanted to make things better for dogs, and we did it by showing people a better and quicker way. We had a standard joke, bet you $50. That's what I always did. If I had someone who contradicted me, I said, you think that I know this. There's a big difference. Why do I know? Because I've done it 1,000 times and I've quantified what percentage of times it works within a time criterion or what have you. See, numbers, this is the silly thing. People keep saying, we're science-based. No, you're not. You have read a little learning theory, which is 100 years old. It's so out of date and lame. It's lame. I mean, read my book and go through the various reinforcement schedules. They are all stupid and lame. Why? 1, they cause all sorts of problems that don't work. Or 2, they're brilliant, like variable or random schedules. Yeah, but no one can compute them. I can. I do it on stage, actually, as a mathematic trip. I can give you a sort of an algorithm for, say, a VR5 and run off 10 trials, the numbers. Basically, I'm giving you 10 numbers that average out at 5. But not many people can do that, but I couldn't do that and train the dog at the same time. So no one can use a variable schedule. There are only 2 schedules that ever to use, totally random. Beautiful. Humans can do that. Why? Humans are not consistent. When are we going to? You have to be. You see, that came from the laboratory. You got to be freaking consistent if you're using that horrible shock. But no, you can be totally inconsistent when you are reward training only, but you want to generate numbers. So we come out with 2 very powerful indexes, a response reward ratio. So you count the number of treats in your hand or in your pocket or on the bench, on a shelf. When you're training, you video, and then you look at how many of those 5 treats did you give and how many behaviors did you get, or how many seconds of long duration behaviors did you get. So it's just, an index. And a puppy, first week in puppy class, 4 to 1. 40 to 1, a golden retriever doing puppy push-ups, down sits, down sit, down sit. They do 20 of them. That's 40 to 1. So why are you shoveling food in the dog's mouth? What you're doing is decreasing its reinforcing power. And then the other schedule would be a differential reinforcement. So I say, reward at random. Change your mind at the last moment. That adds reinforcing power. You got to add the expectation, the intrigue, and the disappointment when they don't get it. They work harder, motivating them. But you got to have some degree of quality control. Yeah. And either you can do it, become like a judge on America's Got Talent, and you say, sit, holy cow, wow, treat, 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 kiss, go play. Because what you saw was that couldn't be quantified. And it's the one way where our brain is so different from AI. We see in a glance the first time, and we can say that was amazing. Incroyable. It was terrible. It was magical. It was lyrical. It was so fast, And that's the learning theory I want people to learn now, which uses our skills, our inconsistency. So I sat down and wrote the book. And it's the only book that I ever promote when I'm speaking. It's so different. There's nothing like it. It's been, barking up the right tree. It's all the same old training stuff as hundreds of dog trainers have written, or it's learning theory stuff based on 100-year-old laboratory study of computers training rats. So we create our own applied science, you see, and that's why I founded the APDT Foundation. But I stepped back and it changed to giving grants to people doing behavior on like surveys of shelter staff or very complicated science on cognition in laboratories, which means the university takes half the money and we don't know whether the study is ever going to be done. No, I wanted the money for trainers for research studies that they have done. And what do I mean by research study? They take 6 dogs and they teach them each to go sit, down, sit, stand, down, stand, hand signals only, 3 repetitions, hand signals only, and then verbal requests only. The amount of data you've got there, but here's the best thing about it. When you look at these data, because I know people are scared of statistics, I only use a very powerful statistical measure, which is called the interocular trauma test, which just involves you looking at the data. So what you do is you test before you train, you test after you train. And what you're looking at now are the response reliability percentages. Well, before you train, they know nothing. See, this is the beauty of a dog training study. It's about training change. That's what dog training is, changing behavior. So the p-values are going to be so teeny, meaning that these values are so statistical. So we plotted out the various exercises, like if you like, response reliability percentage for each position change. Sit, down, sit, stand, down, stand, before and after. And then you print it out on an 8x10 bit of paper and you put it across the room 10 feet away. You glance at that and you say, yep, passes the test. But what does it mean? That the difference between these 2 curves are separated by white space. There is no overlap at all between individuals in the pre-test and the post-test. The intraocular trauma test, the difference hits you between the eyes. So this is a real published study in statistics, which I always have to reference to because I always forget the name of the guy. And that's all they need to do. They generate the data, they plot it visually. So now all people need to do is look at it. Oh, pre-test, post-test. Wow. And what's this? Why are these 2 sits different? Well, the first is a sit from the stand. This is sit up from the down, which is more difficult for bigger dogs. Oh, what about these 2 downs? Why should they be? Well, this is down from the sit, easy peasy. But this is down from the stand, much more difficult, especially for little lead dogs, right?
Yeah.
And it's all there graphically for them to see. Wow, it's a huge difference. And you perform this test, how long did it take you? 30 minutes. A publishable study in any scientific journal I know about behavior. And you don't have to run any statistics at all because they pass this test. And so people don't create data these days. So I would say dog training is now no longer a science. It's people's suppositions, their ideas, it's their thoughts, their perceptions, none to do with science. When I started, it was a pure science. Why? We started where nearly everyone who came to my seminars competed in obedience. There's your test, man. What happens if your dog lays down in a sit-stay? A 0, which means what? You failed the whole test. Now, and I used to always in my lectures say, just as you can 0 out in an obedience trial, you can 0 out in life. Front door open, dog's on the street. Oh, God, he's dead. You could have said sit. If here you had that emergency sit, which is the one thing I try to teach people in puppy class, we could have saved his life. So a lot of trainers now, they have lots of theory, lots of the wrong theory. They don't have the applied theory. They don't know how to generate their own data from the behavioral science, the applied behavioral science that I talk about in Barking Up the Right Tree, which applies so much to all animals, horses, one of the most abused species on this planet. horses, humans, and elephants, the three most abused species there are. It applies so well to humans. There is no need to raise your voice with a child. If you're frustrated, yeah, we have outlets for that. What you don't is shout at your child or in their face. If you don't know how to do it, watch the kindergarten teacher in action. Watch a really good high school teacher in action. There's no threats. They're going to seduce their subjects into learning, which is exactly what we do as puppies.
Yeah.
And for me, the high point was the interactions with people.
Yeah.
I can remember actually someone else asked me a question very similar to one you asked. And my answer was, it was all about the people. They said, why do you teach puppy classes? And I could have said, oh, for the good, for puppy kind, you know. Mm-hmm. I said, you know, it is my surrogate for an English pub. I said, in England, usually once a day you go to the pub. And yeah, we're not total alcoholics. Sometimes I'll go to a pub and drink sparkling water, or sometimes just 1 pint of beer. But I found in America 2 things. People don't greet you on the streets, very different from England, in like Cockney London or rural England, in Spain, in Italy. Everyone says, bonjour, comment ça va? Oui, hello, bon. And in America, they just walk by, unless you have a dog, and they don't welcome you unattended coming to your home. They said, oh, yeah, drop by any time, Ian. And my first year, it was really embarrassing. I would drop by any time, and people stood by the door. What are you doing, Ian? And then I'd wander off. And I said, well, you said drop by any. Oh, well, we're just leaving now. And they wouldn't let me in. Yet in puppy class, I chatted to 8 families in a class, and I loved it. And how many times was asked the question, will this work with my kids? I say, yeah, and your husband too. And it's true. And that is the biggest joy that I hope, I don't think we'll get this done while I'm on this planet, but I know my son will do it afterwards, is writing Barking Up the Right Tree for People. Because I wrote 500,000 words in COVID. And the publisher says, we only want 130. So I took all the human stuff. But that's one of my son and his mum's speciality, cognitive psychology. Yeah. So it's all about people.
Yeah.
And here, these dog trainers who are so, I'm purely positive with dogs. Yeah, but you're so bloody nasty to people, especially people in your own profession. What's going on here? And so the sadness, the togetherness that was such joy, it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
It is a shame. And you know, I'm so glad you referenced, you know, the most memorable moments is I agree. It's getting people together in the same room to just have conversations without all the nastiness and criticism, because you're not going to say things to people usually to their face that people write online. And so, I think that's a good way to bring this whole historical conversation full circle. But let's one last question for fun is, I think maybe the funniest moment in your career. I'll start with one of mine. It's definitely in my memory, and the reason why is because we were talking about the older ABDT conferences, and so this is one of the first times I can't remember how many years ago. This is at least 10 years ago, but I was, and I can't remember the city. We might have been in Portland or Seattle. I feel like it was in the West Coast somewhere, but anyways, here I am. I think I was a speaker, and it was one of my first years speaking, and I was still trying to be all professional, and I was going out to dinner with a couple of speakers, and it was Ken McCourt, who I think you know, and then and then Dr. Simone Gadbois. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go have a professional conversation with these two. We're gonna go sit down and talk about neuroscience, and we did. So we got to this restaurant, and it was a sushi bar, and this was Halloween too. The conference is on Halloween, and it just happened to be on Halloween, karaoke night, and it was a gay bar. And so all these things happening while I'm sitting there thinking this is going to be like some quiet dinner with talking about neuroscience. And Simone, if you guys know Simone Gadbois, he's pretty, he's a great guy. It just, he puts out a professional demeanor. And same thing with Ken. Once you get to know both guys, they're very funny and they're just easygoing. But I'm sitting there first time and like, oh my gosh. And then all these people coming in drag costumes and all this loudness. And then in comes you. So Ian walks into the bar and the karaoke's already going. And you got up there and you just started singing. All some of the attendees were there. They were just like partying and having like this such a great time. And I looked at Simone and Ken. I'm like trying to get their thoughts, seeing all of this going on around us, and they were totally fine with it. They just settle in. But it's just a pleasant memory because here I am, kind of nervous and just uptight about things, and just you came in and brought a whole different energy that made everybody just feel so relaxed and at home. So yeah,
that probably would have been
funny,
in Orlando.
but good story.
Because they had a sushi bar. That's why I used that hotel about 5 times over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't sing. I mean, I can't remember. I must have had a couple of beers or something. I often would get up with, say, Mel Bussey or Sue Pearson, who have really good voices, and sing with them. But
yes, Mel's great.
I would have been so scared if I were on a karaoke stage and I had the mic. But no, they were glory years. I wish we could just be together again. It's like when I look back on my career, I think what's happened in the last 15 years, it makes me want to take ice shards and stick them in my eyes. That what was so wonderful and so much fun, and how we helped each other. But there you go. Anyway, my funniest things. I've had a couple of funny things happen in seminars because there are some seriously hilarious people in the world of dogs. Marty Becker, have you ever met him?
Yes.
Oh, my God. I can't tell one story. It's so rude. But 2 seminars I remember. And I'm giving this seminar, and of course you're scanning the audience, and this person starts to nod. And I sort of say their name, and their eyes come open. And then they go out, they fall asleep. I say, oh, Jesus, it's after lunch. And then I look and someone else has fallen asleep. And one by one, until we got 30 people asleep. And I said, come on, you guys. And they all laughed, But they did a similar thing after lunch, an hour after lunch. And Joel Walton started it. He got up and he just said, take a leap. And he's going to the bathroom, right? And someone else got up. What I didn't know was they're getting up one by one, and then some women, and they're going in the hallway and coming out behind me, behind the podium. They're all standing there. And because no one's laughing. But the funniest thing was, the real-time funniest thing, in puppy classes several years ago, and I'm teaching a puppy class. I get down there, 6 o'clock, so it's puppy 1. So it's the first class that evening. And this guy turns up, and he's there, and I chat to him. I said, well, you're early. He says, yeah. I walked. So, and we're chatting away. Then another person comes in, and a third, and a fourth, and all the puppies. And I always wait to the exact moment, on time, I start. I always have. None of this, let's wait for more people. No, they insulted me by being late. So now we're going to... And I would always tell them in lectures, I say, right, everyone who's here now, in the middle of the lecture, I'm going to say, what's this for? I want you all to burst out laughing like it's the funniest thing you've ever heard, right? And I usually do it when there's a thin partition, so someone else is lecturing next door who's really famous, and the room goes ape shit. And then the other people afterwards say, what's the joke? They say, oh, it was earlier, you missed it. So for anyone who comes in late, they miss this thing. And then people say, what were you talking about, Ian? I mean, it was just nonstop laughter. And it's a good thing to do to keep people awake. Anyway, back to the puppy class. So now we've got 8 puppies. Okay, there's one missing. So I shut the door. It's unlocked, and they know to open it and peep. And I said, right, let your puppies off leash. And this guy says, oh, shit, like this. I said, what's wrong? It's like he'd hurt himself. He said, damn. And he's swearing away and hitting himself on the knees. I said, what's up? What's up? He says, I've forgotten my puppy.
Oh, my God.
He has walked there early. He's been sitting in the puppy training class waiting to start for 15 minutes. All these puppies come in, and he left his puppy at home. So that, I mean, I just couldn't get over that. Too funny. But there you go. I said, well, actually, you also forgot your brain, obviously. No, we got it. I think I'm determined to bring it back within the next year because I think the human race needs getting together again in person. So I'm going to do little lives, ostensibly about dogs, but it's just chatting. And we don't have a permanent facility at the moment. When we do, I'm going to open it up and serve coffee and see if we can give free wine and beer, don't know, whatever, but lots of food. And it'll be for the puppies' families, but they're invited back for the rest of their lives every, once a month or something. Mm-hmm. And it's a community center. If you've ever been to an Alcoholics Anonymous, I tagged along with a friend once, and I just couldn't believe it. And I had to introduce myself too. Mm-hmm. And I said, my name's Ian. I'm not an alcoholic, I don't think, but we'll probably have second opinions on that. Because you have to say, my name is John, I'm an alcoholic. And everyone says, welcome, John. And everyone said, welcome, Ian. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we had an organization like that in every city? It's like Travelers Anonymous, or not limited to travelers, Residents and Travelers Anonymous. Mm-hmm. You're in a town, or you just want to explore another part of the city, and you go into one of these clubs, and then you all have to stop and say, my name's Ian, I'm a doggy behaviorist. Oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm a dog owner. And you just sit and chat to normal people without seeing people through your this is worse, thing in the ear. I hate that. Mm-hmm. And I like this. If we have to chat from a distance, if I can see their face,
yes,
I can do it, because you can signal me, like once you wanted me to shut up, was reading you and then sort of slowed down a bit. But if I can't see you, I can't judge what's going on. Yeah. And so this, to me, is how we should use, social media, social meetings. We just get back to chatting again and make connections in the world. They are very important. And the brain thing, when you get to, say being 70, you are losing neurons so fast, you can't believe it. And so now you've got to take on at least 4 new hobbies regularly, or you got to meet up with people regularly.
Yeah.
And or else you're just losing it.
Yeah.
And I love my mum. She lived to be 97. Her brother lived to be 101. They were sharp as a whit. The last day, and both of them, they walked in hospital and then were dead. My mother said, I'm not going to drink, so I'll be dead in 3 days. And wonderful to talk to someone. It's so sad that you see your granny, and it looks like granny, but there's nothing there.
Yeah. Because
they weren't challenged in their job. They did the same thing every day. Probably didn't read enough novels, to make the synapses. So it's all about making synapses now. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful, this. How long have we been talking?
Fantastic. It's been fabulous.
We've done nearly 2 hours.
It's amazing how time flies. But before we wrap up, where can people find you, and then announce that book one more time of yours?
The best place to contact me is at dunbaracademy.com, and just write to info@dunbaracademy.com, or to Jess. He's going to answer most emails. If you're interested in teaching puppy classes and want to learn how to do it, then write to jamie@dunbaracademy.com. But one thing they can do, we do this because I'm eager to get people intrigued, by dog behavior and training. As I say, I find it magic to this day. The first time a dog sits to a verbal request, just like this, Rover, sit, and it does it. Wow. Yesterday I was walking Mars, and I just stopped, and he sat. I thought, I don't believe it. Amazing. So we give a lot of books, 4 books you can download from, and then also you can sign up for a subscription if you want to, but you can get 1 month's free subscription. And so this is a bit.ly link, and it is info.dunbar/free pup books.
And I'll put those in the show notes so people can find those links. Yeah.
So they can download the books, and the best one to look at is the good old dog book. Of course, there's loads of pictures in it. So I always, when I was a kid, there was this Rupert Bear, and it was a cartoon, 4 drawings with 5 one-liners and then 5 paragraphs. And when I got older, I thought, this is so cool, because as a 3-year-old, I could enjoy this. And then as a 5-year-old, I would read the one-liner. And then when I was a 6-year-old, I could read the whole paragraph. So I've always written my dog training books like that. The pictures are really important. And then the little words underneath the picture, I've forgotten what they're called now. You know what I mean.
Captions.
And you can pretty much read the book. Oh, captions, yeah. Picture, caption, picture, caption. And there's a lot of sequential pictures, so you see how to do stuff where you're moving, for which I used my Malamute. And one of my biggest disappointments in life, I always wanted Dorling Kindersley to ask me to do a book on dog training. The closest I got was they did a book on dog training, and they used all the people I taught, all English dog trainers. But I don't like busy backgrounds. So I bought these roll-down screens, to take pictures in the living room of training a little black and white dog we had. And then I went out and got the killer whale trainer again, Diana, to take photos of me. I found this slope in a park. So if you focus on me, it's a green background. So I took these pictures showing how to teach heeling and recalls and position changes with my Malamute. Well, we rolled on about 7 years, and as a favor to the editor, a good friend of mine, I said I'll edit these breed books for a famous book house, a famous dog book house. Mm-hmm. And so I read, 45 different breed books. And I said, well, you can't publish these. I said, the articles on veterinary science are just incorrect and downright dangerous. And the training articles are ridiculous. It's like they're training 1903, And so they thought, God, what we can do? I said, well, use my training article, because I'd written a training article. And I thought you just throw in a few. And we had to use the only chapters that were good were the breed articles, the history of the breed and how the breed is different. We kept those. The nutritional articles, I think, came from spaniels. The veterinary article came from veterinarians. And every book was the same, apart from the 2 breed items. The cover and the training chapter was identical, and they kept the Malamute pictures. So, insanity. Don't you think you would have put a few Rottweiler pictures in the training chapter? But you see, they were so beautiful because I had these pictures, like the biggest number was 12 in a row. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it was a sequence. 3 pictures to sit from the stand, 3 pictures for down for the sit, and so on. And so to replicate those would take a trainer like me to get the dogs to do it. And they were so cheap, they wouldn't send the photographer out to my house or round up the breeds. They said, we can't afford the photographer. So these books, all of which I said should not be published, it's dangerous information, are still on the market. You can find them, especially if you go to Amazon, if you know what to ask for. Yeah.
Well, I'll get one and you can sign it for me. It's like an antique, right? Ian, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I can't thank you enough for sharing your stories and everything you've done for the industry. So from me personally, I thank you. And I hope to see you again in the future.
I hope so. Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of me getting these puppy classes up and running again. I see it as an opportunity, no competition.
Fantastic. It was such an honor sitting down with Ian and reflecting on the history of the dog training profession. Few people have had the kind of impact he's had on how we think about puppy development, socialization, and reward-based training. His stories and perspective offer an important reminder that many of the challenges we face in our field today are part of a much longer journey in how we understand dogs and how we work with them. And if you're ready to go deeper into understanding and helping dogs with aggression, visit aggressivedog.com. Whether you're a professional or a dedicated dog guardian, you'll find everything from the Aggression in Dogs Master Course to expert-led webinars, informative articles, and details about the Canis Conference happening this October in Schaumburg, Illinois, with both in-person and virtual options available. Thanks for listening in, and as always, stay well, my friends.
So I'm now posting. Why did that happen? What's happened? Oh, God.
Oh, that's okay.
No. That's my son. I didn't know how to turn that. It's
Don't
the
worry.
computer that's ringing. He checks in every day to check I'm still alive, I guess.
No problem.
Oh, I think it's so funny when things like that go off. Anyway, I know your producer won't. Sound people think that is the worst thing that could have happened into my recording.